live button. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube tonight, and Instagram. And now we're going to click the button to go live over on Instagram. Awesome, awesome. We are live. Well, greetings, Tracy. Hi, hello, world. This is one of my other coaching buddies. This is Tracy Eames of Teams and Co. That is so cool the way that works out.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I thanked my parents for my name when I started my company.
Do people have a hard time with saying Eames? Because I think you even say it when you introduce yourself. You're like Team, but without the team, something like that.
Yeah, I always say Teams and Co. I always, if I'm talking about Teams and Co., I always make sure they know there's an extra E because folks will spell it without the E. But Eames, yeah, sometimes people call me Ames. So we get different pronunciations. So I like to, clarify.
Right. I'm about that life too, because people like to call me Celine.
Oh, okay.
It's a very nice name. It's just not my name. So I don't want to be called that.
Well, as a Tracy, you also get used to like the spelling, right? There's IEs, E's, it's all over the place. So I always have to, be pretty cognizant. So that way emails get to me, or else I'm already bad at answering emails. So if you misspell my name, I'm even worse at answering your email.
Well, are you talking to me, right? That's not my name. So I'm not sure you're even talking to me. I get it. Well, welcome to Coaching Conversations. What we like to do is I love to talk and chat with other coaches so that potentially maybe you may identify services that you need, get comfortable if you've never invested in a coach and what that could look like. We talk about things so that you can know, like, and trust them. And it is one of my strengths to just have conversations. I love connecting with people. And so this is the way that I found that it works best for me. So I thank you, audience, when you tune in and you come away with some nuggets. At the end, we're going to talk about what Tracy's offers are that she does have. So stay tuned if you want to find that out. I just attended one of her webinars. It was for 3 days, and it was all about marketing strategy. So I learned so much. It was the way that my brain works. I just didn't know that was the name. Right? So thank you for being here, Tracy. I've got some questions somewhere, but one of my first questions, so I don't even need to look at the list, that I love to start out with is, who do you show up as in the world? How do you show up?
Oh man, that's a good question to start off with. I think I show up in a few different ways, right? I think depending on kind of who knows you, I think to my brother and sister, I'm still their little sister, even though I'm not little and younger anymore, right? But yeah, I think generally, for me, it's just really showing up as authentically as I can. I really try to give people the space to be their authentic self. I think, obviously the work I do with, building teams and growing companies, I think the more of our gifts we can bring every day, just the better off all of our teams will be, the better off we'll be. So I just try to have some fun. I try not to take myself too seriously. And I am an introvert. So
I find that hard to believe. Okay.
But so you might, if you see me, in the real world, you might think I'm a little quieter than when I'm on a podcast. But I think that pretty much sums it up.
I love that. I think about when I very first met you. We were in Atlanta for our coaching intensive, and we all ended up taking over, or was that Puerto Rico we were in? Maybe that was Puerto Rico.
That was like when we expanded the tables.
Yeah, was that Puerto Rico? So that was at graduation. So, but this was before when we were in Atlanta, and I just thought I found your energy to be just exactly like you said, like you don't take yourself too seriously, and you were kind of going with the flow. And I felt your energy, and I thought you were just so cool, like somebody that I absolutely would want to be friends with.
Well, amen to that. That's why I think that's why we've stayed friends. And I think, I have the same feeling. And especially in a large group, I will say I tend to go with the flow a lot because I, as an introvert, don't usually hang out with 100 of my closest coach friends. So that week, I just remember being like, just say yes. Just say yes to whatever people, like if it's dinner, if it's whatever, like I'm good. Let's do it.
Exactly what you were saying. I'm good. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm fine with anything.
So cool. It was So cool. We got to hang out. We did the darts, everything. It was so doggone fun.
That was fun. Yeah, I probably need to brush up on my dart skills, but it was good. It was a good time.
It, it really was. So speaking in that vein and with going into coaching, what made you want to go ahead and get certified as a coach?
Yeah, so I started Teams and Co about 5 years ago. We just had our fifth anniversary, which is super exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I started it just because I worked at a lot of different corporations, different sizes, different types of industries, and
Mhm.
mostly in sales, marketing, product innovation, a little bit of operations itself. So a lot of the like growth areas, right? And so I noticed that no matter how big a company was, how long it had been in business, growth is hard, right? Getting a team to grow and a business to grow is not for the faint of heart. So, but I always felt like there was a better way to do it. And I really felt that organizations that led with their teams were really, really more successful. And so I started Teams and Co on the premise of if you know your customer and you can deliver that customer value through a really compelling strategy and you can train your teams on how to deliver that strategy, you'll grow quickly. Right. So those are our three pillars, like delight your customer, set an ambitious strategy, and then empower your teams.
Mm,
And so I've worked with a lot of businesses and I started to realize that, as an entrepreneur, um, and as a female entrepreneur, frankly, I just wanted to help more female entrepreneurs, make it to 5 years, make it to 10 years, 15 years, right? I think it's an uphill battle being an entrepreneur. It kind of feels like a roller coaster most days. And I've always been grateful for the coaches and mentors that I've had that have helped me get through those tougher parts. And so I felt like getting a certification, especially for an organization that was dedicated to kind of opening up the world of entrepreneurship to many more voices, was really important to me. So that's how I got there. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I just met so many great people and great other coaches and learned a ton. So yeah, it was a good choice, I think.
yeah, I think so too. And I think it's a unique perspective to bring to the space. So after taking your webinar for those 3 days and learning your offer, because you really help the companies like get it all done. You don't just go in there and say, do this, do this, do that. You really come alongside them and help them so that when you leave, they're good to go.
Yeah, so when I was a vice president of marketing, a director of marketing, and the thing that always kind of frustrated me, I'm not gonna lie, was a consultant would hand you this PowerPoint and they'd be like, "Here you go." And I'm like, "How am I doing this? Like, I don't have enough resources. Like, I have like 9,000 priorities.
Right.
It's great that you gave me another idea, but like, how are we executing it?" So I made a very firm commitment when we started with Teams and Co. And that's why team is the third pillar, is that we stay on and we help teams take that strategy. So really out there kind of statistic, Inc. magazine talks about the fact that 2/3 of organizations don't actually reach their strategy. They don't execute their strategy. So we talk about this a lot, not just because we know the stat, but because that's that's incredible, right? We spend all this time making strategies, and to not execute them really hurts our businesses. It wastes lots of resources, lots of time. People don't love wasting time in my understanding. Whether you're a solopreneur or a big business, nobody goes to work to be like, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's just not what we want. So we stay on after strategy and we help people take that strategy and roll it out to their team. So we say, okay, what are the team goals? What are the individual goals? How do we train leaders on how to run a meeting, how to work cross
All
functionally,
right. Ooh,
you
that's so
know,
good.
how to do all those things because we're not born knowing those things, right? And so it's really helpful, especially for smaller organizations that are growing. It's really helpful for them because a lot of those team members have kind of grown up in the organization. And so we can come in and say, hey, we've got a lot of experience from lots of other companies. Let us help you learn that. And then we'll leave. We promise we're not going to stay around forever. But at
Right.
least it gives people a jump start. So that's the premise.
Absolutely. And I think it's fantastic. And it lends to what I was saying about this is the way that I think. I just didn't know that it was called marketing, right? So the companies are doing something. There's operations, there's sales, HR, all of those areas. And for them to have a uniformed voice,
Yep.
right? And really be executing, they've all got to get on the same page. And would you say that that's marketing? Because that's kind of how I see it. You're bringing all
Yeah.
those pieces together.
That's
Yeah,
it. That's spot on, right? Like, I mean, marketing's job is to make sure that the brand shows up consistently, right? And so I like to use the analogy about like meeting somebody for the first time, right? Like we talked about how we met, right? If I showed up the next time that you saw me in Puerto Rico and I was super standoffish and I was like, no, everything's going to be my way. You'd be like, I don't understand. The last time I met this person, she
yeah,
seemed really different, right? And unfortunately, a lot of companies do that with their marketing. They're like, if sales is over here making presentations and HR is talking about things when they're hiring people and you don't have that one brand voice, people they can't know, like, and trust you. They can only know, like, and trust you if you're giving them a very consistent thing to react to. So
mhm,
it builds more trust, and that's marketing's job. So marketing's job is to really build that relationship with the customer and make sure that they understand, like, hey, this is what we stand for, this is our voice, these are our values, this is why we should be friends. That's basically like what marketing does.
and when I at the third day and just the questions and looking at everything, I felt like marketing was really the MVP. Like they, without marketing, you're just doing tactics.
I mean, I said that my entire career, but you can't really vote for your favorite team, but I always love being part of the marketing team. I think it's fun, right? It's fun to be able to kind of do that, right? Obviously, every team plays a really critical role, right? I always would laugh because, marketing's fun, but you don't want me, I don't know, running your fulfillment team. Like, I don't know how to purchase products. Like, I don't know how to vet them, right? Like, that's probably, you don't want me on my, definitely don't want me to be your accountant. Like, but the accounting team, super important. um, so, I mean, I think there's all the teams are really important, but I always gravitated towards marketing because I fundamentally believe you can't be in business if you don't make your customers happy, right? That's what we're all here for, is to solve some challenge, help people through something. And so, that's the job of marketing. The job of marketing is really sort of connecting with your customer and making sure they're getting the value that they want to get. So,
Mhm. And that's it at its core. What does it look like in practice, right? I've got a really beautiful one of my best good girlfriends. She is well, I'm going to call her a CMO. She would beg to differ. I think she's not exactly got that title, but she's the shit. And to see what she does is incredible at the organization where she is.
yeah.
And so at its core, because I've seen how she like put the pieces together, and it's like astounding to me. So what does it look like in real life for people that are, especially small businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can look different, right? And I think that's why people get confused about marketing, especially now because people use such lingo and they're like, it's content marketing and it's product marketing and brand marketing and everything has marketing attached. So it totally makes sense to me why people who haven't spent their entire career in marketing are like, I have no idea what's going on.
Right.
That's natural because we use so many terminologies for it. So like I always think marketing, no matter how your company's kind of set up, it starts off with your marketing strategy, right? And so in that, you kind of want to decide, what do I want to be and where do I want to go, right? So for me, first and foremost, as I always say, you got to know who your customer is, right? So marketing's job at the core is to
Hmm.
figure out, who are we serving, right? Like, what's important to them, what keeps them up at night, what are they going to find valuable, what won't they find valuable, right?
Right.
Like, those are all super important. Then we got to sort of say, okay, we're going to set some goals about what we want to be, right? And how we're going to try to solve their challenges, right? Like, do we want to be the market leader? Do we
Right.
want to be the company that comes in and changes the way that this industry works, right? We want to shake some stuff up. That's always a fun spot to be.
Mhm.
Then then marketing is to decide the brand, right? So if we know we want to connect with these consumers, okay, that's great. But what do we want to be, right? What's our mission? What's our values? What's that unique thing that we bring to the table? How are we showing up in the world, right? When people hear brand, they're like, oh, that's just a logo and some colors. And it's like, no, it's a lot more, right?
Mhm.
It's like the person that your brand personifies, right? And so marketing does that. They take that, then they decide on a lot of other things that, kind of what's called your positioning, right? Are you a luxury brand? Are you a commodity? Are you an innovative brand? Are you first to market, right? Like, all of those are really great. I always use the example. if you think about cars, right? Like BMW, is really performance oriented, also luxury, but like Lexus is also luxury, but then has a different, like, it doesn't focus as much on like, German engineering. It focuses on its own kind of positioning. Whereas, the other part of Lexus is Toyota, right? And like the Prius really positions itself on being innovative and saving the world and being, eco-friendly, right? So three super successful types of cars. But the marketing team at each one of those places needed to decide, like, okay, well, this is our brand. How are we kind of bringing that to market and telling people about it? Um, and then we got to figure out what everybody else around us is doing so we can, kind of differentiate ourselves, right? Like what's going on in the market, what's going on in the competitive set. And then we got to roll that out into like what most people think about as marketing, which is like your content and your tactics. And that's kind of next. And then last but not least, I always tell people, don't forget about measuring. So we do a lot of data analytics and a lot of like figuring out what the data says and then optimizing. So I know that's a lot, but those are kind of the big core pieces as you're thinking about what marketing does.
So positioning, branding.
So you do target market, you set your objectives, you do your branding, you do your positioning, then you do your competitive market, like what's going on around us, and then your content and channel strategy. So
I love that. And it's a methodology to it, ideally,
yeah.
so that it helps everybody move forward into the same direction and understand their role. It also sounds like to me, it really helps you understand your customer, like who, and your customer to understand who you are.
Yeah, 100%, right? Like you want to know in order, I love what you said is like, to be successful as a company, people need to know, like, and trust you, right? And it's hard to get to know somebody if they keep changing how they talk about themselves. It's also really hard to trust them, right? Like if I'm constantly doing different things, you don't know like what I'm about, right? And so
Mhm.
it's really that consistency, that consistent voice, that consistent way of showing up is really helpful. It also helps you make decisions along the way, right? So if your like brand is all about, being premium, then you may not run promotions, right? And now you don't have to make decisions about that because you're like, hey, I'm premium. I'm not going to run promotions, right? Like that's your decision. So you're not like constantly guessing throughout the year. You're thinking more like, okay, well, how do I connect with other premium brands, right? Do I want to do a pop-up shop? Do I want to think about a collaboration with another luxury brand, right? We see that all the time, right? So it just, by knowing these things, it helps you decide like what are you going to spend your time on? Because if I said, hey, I'm a luxury brand, but every other week I'm like, everything's on sale, 75% off, people are going to be like, that doesn't feel right.
Exactly.
They might
And,
like it, but it might not feel right.
and I actually, it makes me feel good to know that I'm on the right track, because I kind of thought about things like that, right? Like I'm not offering discounts,
Right.
you know, no,
Yeah.
you've got to rise to the occasion that you want the value that I'm offering you to change your life.
Yeah, no, and I think that's great, right? Like, and knowing that probably saves you a lot more. Like, I mean, I don't know the name of the book off the top of my head, but it's like I read a book that just basically says our brain gets more and more tired throughout the day. The more decisions we have to make, the more we get tired, which totally makes sense, right? It's
Absolutely.
so if you already made that decision, like you don't ever have to make that decision again until, maybe 5 or 6 years down the road, you decide, hey, I really want to do something. Like that's what I do. I don't run a ton of promotions, but for our 5th year anniversary, I really wanted to like reach more entrepreneurs who are smaller businesses. So we ran a bunch of specials. Will that happen again for 5 years? Probably not. But like we wanted to celebrate, we wanted to say thank you. There's been a lot of great people who have, helped us over the last 5 years, and we
Yeah,
wanted to do something special. So
I love that. How's it going?
it was good. It was a fun way to do it. But like the way we did it was we did things that were super in line with our brand, right? So we ran specials for entrepreneurs because we felt like that was really important, and a core value was to support the entrepreneurial community. We also, for bigger companies, if they bought coaching, we donated free coaching to a nonprofit, right? So when we said, hey,
Yeah,
you know what, like they're still paying the full price, but they got to know like, hey, by me signing up for coaching, another community organization is going to get the benefit. And so again, that's just the way we do it. Doesn't have to be the way that everybody does it, but that felt most in line with our brand.
Right. And it was a strategy.
It was a strategy. Yeah.
It started with the strategy. That's super fantastic. All right, I'm gonna go to the script now and ask a couple of questions.
Great.
What inspired you to focus on the importance of marketing strategy over tactics?
Yeah, honestly, so at Teams and Co, like I said, we primarily work in these three pillars, right? Customer, strategy, and team. And to be really open and honest, we didn't do a ton in marketing because we're not like the execution company, right? Like I don't design ads. I don't, manage somebody's social media. That's not my core strength. But I started to do and offer specific coaching around strategy and marketing strategy because I saw a lot of entrepreneurs struggling with it, right? As an entrepreneur, when you first start your business, you don't have a lot of time and you don't have a lot of money, right? Because your time is all focused on trying to build the business. So it's a really valuable resource.
Right.
And you don't have money to, really waste. And I think a lot of times people look at what other people are doing, and so they're doing these tactics, and I don't want to see them lose money because it can be really expensive to run digital ads, right? Like, and there's a lot of things you can do and test for free as long as you take the time to make the strategy. So my sort of perspective and what I share with people is, yes, it takes time to make a marketing strategy. I will 100% say that that's true. But that time that it takes you will save you so much time and effort and money down the line because you have a plan, right? So like if I was just like, hey, I'm going to go down the street and I'm going to throw $10 out the window every couple of feet, you'd be like, why? I don't right? Like, but that's kind of what you're doing if you don't have a marketing strategy and you're just running random stuff and you're not testing and you're not tracking and you're doing what somebody else is doing, you don't know if it's reaching your customers, you don't know if the messaging is good. You
Right.
don't you don't know what you don't know, and you just potentially could be losing money. And I hate watching folks, lose money on that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to, share some of my expertise to be helpful in that vein.
I could feel your passion in that. And it brings me to a client that I had. When you talk about this, it's one, tactics, understanding what tactics really is, I think. Would you mind defining like what a tactic is?
Yeah. So some examples of tactics are like what we're doing right now, right? A podcast is a tactic, right? A Facebook ad is a tactic. A LinkedIn post that's free is a tactic. Trying to get press. So if you're like trying to get interviewed by your local media, that's what's called earned media. It's a
Hmm.
tactic. So tactics are the actual action you're taking, right? So it's the content that you're creating in a very specific place versus your strategy is I want to reach these people with this message in these places because I know that they're there. And then the tactic is like the actual post, if that makes sense.
Hmm. So having the overall strategy, I liken it to 80% planning, 20% work.
Yep.
I'm about that life. I'd rather plan and then execute
That's
versus
awesome.
just executing and like trying to hit a target that is moving
Yeah,
kind of.
because then you don't know, right? So like if you're just out there and like I always say this because I think it happens a lot. People want to learn from the experts and they want to learn from other companies.
Hmm.
The challenge is you don't know if your client is the same, right? So you
Absolutely.
and I could both be correct in our strategy, but if we have completely different customers, then like we shouldn't be using the same tactics, right? Because so I could look at you and you could say to me, "Hey Tracy, I ran this really great ad and it was super successful and I could try to duplicate that, but if it doesn't resonate with my customer, I'm just going to be wasting money." So I'm not saying it wouldn't be successful for you. It's just having that strategy helps you understand like, "Oh, okay, it'd be like putting the wrong tire on your car." So you're like, "Oh, those tires are really cool, but it's not the right size." Like you're not driving anywhere.
Absolutely. And I actually, as I was saying, I had a client where that kind of showed up and came to light. They were watching some of the social media greats and how they do things and all of the things. And one of the things was going live,
Hmm.
but then removing the live so that they could later monetize it.
Okay.
But now they're just getting started. So what that was doing was the person would only see the content if they were live, right?
Yeah.
And 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 the other thing that I think really stood out was this other person could afford to do that. They had grown their business over time. So you're
Right.
talking about one person's just starting out doing this versus somebody that's been doing it maybe 10, 5 to 10 years. And they have the flexibility now where they can do that and
Right.
charge for that. When you're still in just the awareness stage of making people aware of you, what your content is, what your voice is, what
Yeah.
you have to offer, all of those things. And it was really heartbreaking for me to see that, because the thing that I had to say was, does she have the same ideal customer? Does
Right.
she know your goals? Does she
Hmm.
know, really know your business?
Yeah.
Because just what you were saying, those tactics work for her and her strategy, where you haven't even developed one yet.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's spot on, and I think it's also like, what do you wanna do, right? Like, I don't think that I come off, I know, like, when I'm talking about my content, I sound a little bit more serious, right?
Yeah,
Like, I just do, and I know that about myself. I get into what I call teacher mode, and I'm like, "And this, and this, and this," right? And that doesn't always, like, hit the mark on Facebook, for example.
right,
No dig against Facebook, like, a lot of people use it, and a lot of people go there. I use LinkedIn a lot for my business because people, when they're on LinkedIn, are expecting like 4 bullet points around business tips and tricks. And so it fits really nicely there. So
right,
in my customer research, I know my ideal client uses LinkedIn. They use it for educational purposes, they use it to learn about things.
right.
And then I also know when they're considering, right, they've moved down the funnel a little bit, now they're considering consultants. They want to hear them, they want to like be able to interact with them. So I do a ton of speaking, and I also have a podcast, right? And so I know, like, hey, where are they learning about me, and then what information do they need to make a decision? And I try to do both of those things really well, and I try to limit the other things I do because I just don't have unlimited hours. So
Absolutely. And so that helps you really get strategic and focused in. You know where they're at,
right.
you know your channel, where they're going to be, and they're already looking for you. And so now you're making yourself available so they can find you.
100%, right? If you know what people are looking for, and like it's not the same for everybody. So like that's why I always tell people the first thing I do when I'm thinking about starting a business or trying to make my marketing strategy is I interview 5 to 6 people who could be my ideal client. They don't have to be my current client, but like, do they fit the persona of the kind of person I want to serve? Do they have the same challenges? Do they have the same, wins? Do they think about the same things?
Hmm.
And don't make it a sales call. Like, you're not trying to convince them to buy anything. You're just going to ask them a bunch of questions, right? You're just going to be like, hey, if you're trying to find a coach, where do you do that? Right? Like, okay, great. Well, then once you find 3 coaches, like, what else do you care about, right? Like, are you looking for a particular kind of coaching? Do you like virtual versus in person?
Right.
Like, do you want it to be long or short, right? Like, some people want like VIP days and other people want like 12-month coaching packages. Everybody wants something a little bit different. So it's good to know what your customer wants, because then you can offer the right products and you could talk about them in the right places.
Absolutely. I went immediately after I took your webinar and I did some customer discovery, and it was
Awesome.
rich, so rich. I learned a lot, right? I was like, oh my God, this stuff works. And so it gives you your messaging, it
Yeah.
gives you, like you said, the strategy to know where to show up, what resonated, what didn't resonate, and don't do that again, all of the things. So I was super excited. I felt like a big girl. I was like, okay, this stuff
I love
works.
that.
And it feels so good though. It was really empowering.
Yeah, it does, right? Because it gives you a bit of knowledge, right? People are like, well, how am I supposed to know this? And it's like, you're not. You're not supposed to know it. You're
You
just supposed
gotta
to, you just got to ask the questions, right? And people want to help, right? Like, I've even had times where I have, a really strong network of people who want Teams and Co to be successful, right? So I've made, a strategy. I've revised that strategy a couple of times in the 5 years that I've had it, right? Um, a few years back, I can remember like doing a certain tactic and coming out of a strategy. It was based on what I thought was the right plan, and it just wasn't working. And I'm like, this is really weird, but it happens. It happens to people like me who have been in marketing for 20 years. You're like, I don't know what's wrong about this, but I feel like I've tested the headline and then I wait a little while and I tested this and like you only want to test one thing at a time. But
Right.
I feel like I spent a few weeks testing it and it wasn't hitting the mark. And I finally went back to a handful of people in my network and I was like, I know you might not want this right now, but you based on your role and based on what you do, you're my ideal client. I'm not trying to sell you this thing, but can you just look at a couple of these like ads that I have? And can you look at the product and can you like give me some feedback about why it might not be working? And it was so enlightening. Like I didn't do anything. I wasn't super smart. I just asked a bunch of people like, why don't you think this is working?
Right. Right.
And it was
Right.
great.
I love that. I love that. And I think people want to help, like you said, and people are always willing to share their opinion. I know that's true.
It's one of the best things. Like people, especially like, and then if you ask your clients, right? Like if all of a sudden, you see like people are not buying this certain product anymore, or you thought everybody would start with this product and then buy this product, but they're not. Like your
Hmm.
clients love getting asked questions because it shows them you care, right? Again, you don't want to make it feel like you're trying to sell them something. You just want to make it feel like, hey, I really value your opinion, and I'm just going to ask you some questions. And then to your point, people love that. People are like, oh, Selena really cares about me. She like really wants to make something that's going to work for me. So she's asking me these questions.
Absolutely. It was very enlightening. We ended up being on, I think, 2 hours. I was like, oh wow. All right. I have another question for you.
Wow.
Uh, Given that I am the disruptor coach, I always want to know, what did the disrupt her in you have to disrupt?
Man, good question. I think the thing that I try to disrupt the most is this belief in organizations that individuals create the change. I really believe that teams create growth and teams create change. And unfortunately, I've been speaking about this a lot lately.
Yeah.
A lot of organizations are set up with like individual rewards. Individuals get promoted, they get celebrated. But truly, most of our work is cross functional. Like
Mhm.
I, there's very few things we do, even as a business owner, that I do all by myself in a given day, right? Like that's just not how our world works anymore. And so I'm constantly telling folks like, hey, we got to think about teams. And then we have to think about them in a way that empowers them, right? Because people want to do a good job and they want the tools and resources. So we really have to invest in people and we have to invest. And that's also a change of thinking, right? People are like, well, people should just know this and they should just be leaders. And it's like,
Mm.
that's probably not true. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you're not like innately born with like these things. And I think when people don't invest in their teams, they lose people, they lose great people. People get really frustrated and they just don't know what to do, right? Because people want to do a good job. And so I really try constantly to disrupt the way that organizations think about growth and think about teams because I think some very simple changes can make their teams so much stronger and deliver really great results, but also keep people because people want to be a part of a winning team.
Yes, absolutely.
Like,
That's the first thing crossed my mind. They want to be in a good space and feel that they're contributing to the team as well.
yeah, it's
Uh,
like the golden rule, right? Like I always laugh. I'm like, I mean, really, it comes down to like treating people the way you want to be treated, right? Like when you were early in your career, didn't you want somebody to invest in you? Didn't you want somebody to coach you? Right? When
mhm,
you got to a new job, didn't you want somebody to explain it to you and not just be like, go drink from the fire hose?
right, exactly.
Like, so I feel like if we just kind of, and again, it goes back to asking. Like, that's what I always tell leaders. They're like, well, how do I know what my team wants? I'm like, just ask them. Have a conversation. Sit down and be like, hey, how can I help you today? Like, I'm your leader. That's my number one job. What can I do to make your day easier? And what can I do to empower you more?
Absolutely. And then actually do it.
Then do it.
Don't just take it in. Let's just do it. It makes me think about, so you and I are in this coaching pod community right now, right? Where we're learning positive intelligent quotient.
Yeah.
We call it PQ. And the founder of this, Shirzad, I think I'm saying his name. Hopefully, I'm giving him justice. He talks about that with organizations because organizationally, he works with some really large, big companies to help them and their team when they're struggling, right?
Right.
And what it comes down to, and this is more around the mind and the judge, but it's something for us to kind of, as coaches, be able to serve our clients, and us being our first clients. But what he talks about, which I found very profound, he talked about that most companies don't follow their strategy and their values, right? They have a heart
Yeah.
problem. They say it, but they don't really do it. And so that's why he kind of works with them to figure out like what's really at play,
Yeah.
right?
100%. We do that a lot. The first step we always take with our clients is we do an assessment. We do it for individuals and for corporations, right? So if we're going to come work with you, whether you want to be coached by us or you want like a big consulting project, we always start with where are we today? Because it's really hard to make any kind of change if you don't know where you're at, right? And so that's one of the big things we dive into is, are we acting within our values, right? Because as an organization, we should have a vision, right? Like, where do we want to be in the future? Like, what's that big thing we're trying to change, right? The mission is like how we're going to do that, basically, right? Like, what's the 5-year, 10-year plan? And
Mhm.
your values is how you do it, right? And so one of the things we see a ton with, this kind of ties into marketing and to consulting, we see a ton with customers, clients of ours, um, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that, we get kind of caught up in our day to day, right? And so one of the things that we see is people say, "Hey, we're customer focused. We're customer focused," and then you might see like that there's a goal around, um, you know, being on the phone for a certain amount of time,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like
big
if
one.
somebody calls, like we want to wrap up a call in 2 minutes. And so what we say to folks is, "Hey, if you're customer focused and your customer comes first, what you probably want is that you're going to solve their challenge in one phone call. It's called one call resolution, right?"
Mhm.
And that
Absolutely.
changes your approach because now you're like, okay, marketing, I need some FAQs. Customer support, we're going to do some more training. We need operations and other cross functional partners to like give us information for those FAQs. We need to
Right,
probably make some more policies,
right.
right? But people walk away being really happy, right? Like, because they're like, I called once. Nobody has time for a phone call. Like, if
Absolutely.
people are calling you, like, they don't want to have to call you back. So, like, it's not about the like time you should be on the phone with them, because I think the mistake is that people make is like, "Oh, well, I don't like to be on the phone, so let's just wrap these up quickly."
Mhm.
And
And
it's
then
like,
you gotta call back multiple times, which is
which nobody wants, right? Like I called
yeah.
Chewy. I love Chewy. I talk about them all the time. They're like a great brand. I buy everything for my dog from them.
Yeah.
And like I called, and the representative that helped me not only solved my challenge, she also noticed that like something was wonky with one of my auto ships, and so she like took like 10 minutes on the call to like reorganize all my auto ships and make sure that they were correct so I would no longer have the challenge that I didn't even know I was about to have. And I was like, "Thank you."
Wow. Wow, me. I love good customer service.
I was
I
like, "Okay, great."
I love that. I love getting a human.
Yeah,
I
it's so
do not
great.
like talking to the VRU. That just drives me crazy. But yes, I get it. And so that's all strategy.
Yep.
That is super fantastic. Well, I had a number of like business focused questions, but I think that we've asked them all. So I've got a couple of personal questions if you're
Uh-oh.
okay with that.
I'll do my best.
I'll,
I'll calm my inner introvert. I don't usually share a lot of personal things, but I'll give it a shot.
I'll be very gentle.
I
What are
appreciate
what'd you say?
I appreciate that.
Awesome. What
I'm
are
gonna start blushing right now.
we'll keep it PG for the most part, but it is evening, so we might. What are some of your hobbies or interests that bring you joy?
The thing that brings me the most joy in life is my dog. I adopted a hound. She was 10 and a half when I adopted her. She's now
Oh,
15.
wow.
Her name is Wheezy.
Hey, Wheezy.
She's over on the guest bed now, watching me. She heard me laughing and was like, "What's going on over there, mom?" But I just love her. She's just, she's my pride and joy. We go for hikes a lot. I love being active. I played sports all my entire life, which is probably why I like being a part of a team.
Mm,
Um, and I just like hanging out with friends and family. Like I don't have to do. I think that's why, like in Atlanta, I'm like I don't really mind what we do. If I'm with people I genuinely enjoy, like I love a good restaurant. I mean, My brother and sister-in-law were great. They texted me yesterday and said like, "Hey, you've been having a busy week. Why don't we bring pizza to your house and we'll just hang?" And I was like,
I love that.
I woke up this morning being like, that was the best. I like texted them. I was like, I really appreciate that. It was just so nice to like
Yeah.
spend some time together.
Yes. I reserve my Saturdays for that.
Yeah.
I don't do any work. I just want to connect with my people, maybe have a good every other week I do self-care, like intentional self-care. But
Yeah.
if I can connect with my people, that's so awesome. I love that. I love that. All right. And then what meaningful lessons or insight have you gained from your own personal experiences that you would share with us? Any kind of thing that kind of just stuck with you?
I'll say two things. One, I had my first leader in my first like job after college. I worked for a company called Tom's of Maine. They make natural toothpaste and deodorants.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I worked for them for about, gosh, almost 8 years, I think 7.5 years, something like that. But my first boss, she was amazing. Um, she was the kind of boss you always want. And she taught me a lot of valuable lessons about how I wanted to lead. But there were some times that actually there was this one instance that really stands out to me that I think is just an incredible moment where a customer was very angry, and I was trying to solve the challenge. Right, I was super young. I maybe was on the job for, I don't know, let's call it 6 months. I'm like 21,
Oh yeah.
22 maybe. Um, the customer was really, upset, and I was trying to be like, we had promised we were going to deliver a product at a certain time, and there was a delay. Right, that happens in the real world. Right, there's delays on things, and so I was trying to explain like the reasons for the delay, and I obviously was getting very flustered. I didn't like the idea that I had done something wrong. Like that's what all that was going through my head was, oh my gosh, what did I do? I'm going to get fired.
Right.
And she came over and she calmed the customer down. She talked to them and took me aside, and I said, I'm really sorry. Like, and she was like, well, first let's get something straight. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, there was a delay. It's nobody's fault. It just happens in the real world. You tried to explain that to somebody, and I get his perspective, right? He was planning on it. But I really loved how level headed she was about the whole thing. She saw everybody's perspective, and she also just made it super clear that, like, there's learning moments in life, and, like, it's not your fault. So, like, don't go there. Don't get
Mhm.
scared. I'm
Mhm.
your leader. I'll teach you when you need to be, like, mentored. But
Right.
I thought it was just a very gentle way to, like, handle the situation. Like, she kind of, saw everybody's perspective, and I really try to model that as much as, I mean, we're all human. I'm not perfect, but I
Right.
just try to think about that in my kind of daily life and my daily work is like, hey, if there's 5 people, there's probably 5 perspectives, and how can I help people kind of navigate that and see each other's kind of point of view? So,
Mhm.
and then the thing I always say to entrepreneurs, I just had lunch with a friend who's an entrepreneur a couple of days ago, is it's hard. So anybody who's out there saying that like growing your business is easy and it should happen overnight, it's not.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it's not. Like, and
Oh,
I say that
bullshit.
I say it because I think we all just need to give ourselves and each other a little bit more grace. Like growing a business is hard and it takes a lot of work, and you're gonna do some things wrong. You're gonna try some stuff, it's not gonna work, and that's okay. Like it's a roller coaster, but hopefully you have fun doing it. But this notion that like every entrepreneur is perfect and that like the journey is perfect is just, it's really false. And so I try to tell people like my journey, and that's one of the biggest things I've learned is like the more we can share the real ins and outs of being an entrepreneur, I think it'll just help us all kind of take a deep breath.
Absolutely. And that's something with me. I'm really big on that. I don't want to look perfect. I'm going to show up. You've seen me on calls. I might have plaits in my hair because some days it's that kind of day. I didn't even get
Right.
dressed. I'm still in the robe, like all the things because it's real. And sometimes just mentally being able to show up. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I ain't always there. And I want people to know that. And that's human, right? Like
Yeah.
so
I think pretending that we're all always 100% every single day is is just, it's really false and it's dangerous, right? And I think that I say that to leaders a lot too, like assuming that your team is always going to be able to give this. First of all, there's no such thing as giving 110%. 100 is the max. Like that's actually the max.
Real
And like people can care and people can give, but like as leaders, we also have to give people permission to be a little bit human on some days and like try to find that. I'm not saying like, hey, everybody gets a free pass and doesn't have to do anything ever. But what
right.
I am saying is like having that grace as we move through the world and being honest of like, yeah, sometimes on Fridays I just want to work with yoga pants on, and like, you know what, that's okay because my brain works just great if I'm wearing yoga
The same
pants.
way. I feel like there's been definitely been a shift because when I was coming up and working and everything, it was like you left your personal stuff at the door
Right.
when you went to the office, and it's like realistically that just doesn't make fucking sense, right? You're still a whole human,
Yeah.
and there are so many things that happen, and you spend most of your time at work,
Yeah.
and you can't fully be yourself at work. You got to like suck it up, or yeah, I'm so, at least that's in my experience. I've seen that culture shift changed, especially during the pandemic. Like, they wanted
Yeah.
people to bring them full selves to work.
And also like recognizing it and like giving people this time and space to honor it, right? Like I had again, it was like my first job. I was really young. I didn't know what was expected. I just thought like you went to work every day no matter what. And I had mentioned to HR that I had had a family emergency. And she said, "Okay, well you should just go home." And I was like, "Well, I have I have to work." I didn't like give anybody notice. Like, like the policies were supposed to give people like a week advance notice, and like, did you know this emergency was going to come up? And I was like, No. She's like, "Great. I would just go tell your boss that you have to leave because you've had a family emergency and um let him know that you talked to me and like you're going home and like take a few days. Go be with your family." And I was like, "But don't like there's a lot of stuff going on." She's like, "Yeah, it'll all be here when you get back." And I just thought it was like a really nice, generous way to say like, and I must have looked shocked because she was like, "All you're gonna do here is think about your family.
Yeah,
So go be with your family." Like these things don't come up every day. Just go. And I think like by honoring that, people do want to give more, right? Like I always find with like people want to like work for an organization that truly cares about their whole self. So yeah,
so
like are people going to have some ups and downs? 100%. But if you can be there as like a real partner and give them what you would expect in that situation, people really appreciate it and they want to do a good job for people who genuinely care about them.
absolutely. And
So.
you said something early on that it was a woman that you were working for that was a CEO. I don't know who started that
Oh,
company.
she was a director. So the CEO was well, it was co-founded by a couple, Tom and Kate Chappell.
Mhm.
So the first they were a couple and they founded it back in the 70s. But when I worked there, he was the CEO. But we had a fair amount of women in leadership at that organization. So
I, I bet you did. I'm sure if Kate and Tom were both involved, Kate knew what she was doing, right? Because
I mean, all of them, right? Like it was a really, I mean, I always say like I had so many great opportunities there. I always speak very fondly of my time there because I think that they created a great culture. They were very intentional about it. They did a lot of
yeah,
trainings, a lot of values training, a lot of making sure people really like got what they were about, right? And yeah, I mean, I was given a lot of great opportunities at a young age to learn a lot of different parts of business that set me up to be able to now be able to coach people and be able to share that knowledge with others. So I really, and it was just like you got to know people really well. I worked there for a long time and the people were great. And so a lot of my like folks that I still stay in touch with are from there and a lot of my mentors. So
I love that. I love that. And this is the fruit of all of that because you are also in turn helping the same way. I can appreciate that in you. Let me see. I think let's see. What books, podcasts, or other resources have had a significant impact on your own personal and business journey? We love a
ooh.
good book.
I just read a great book that I've been telling everybody about, which is called Atomic Habits.
Oh, okay.
Um, I I struggle with kind of getting momentum around stuff just because I'm one of those people that tries to do 9 million things in a day. And it said something like, don't make the goal for the goal, but make it for the first action. So, like, instead of
Mhm.
saying, I'm going to go to the gym every day for a week, the goal is I'm going to put my gym shoes on.
Mhm.
But, like, once you put your gym shoes on, you're going to probably do the rest of the stuff. And I just,
Right.
or like habit stacking, I found really interesting. Where it's the idea that like you do something you like with something you don't like. So like I wanted to build
Mm.
a habit to do more cycling on my indoor bike. And so I gave myself the reward of watching TV.
While you're
So
doing it.
while I'm doing it. So like I get on the bike, I watch a TV show for a half hour and I cycle. And like so it's not like I'm not doing like a major workout. I'm not like, solving the world of athleticism, but it keeps me active and it keeps me motivated. And so, yeah, when on days I'm like, ugh, I don't really want to do that. I'm like, well, let's watch, a soccer game or let's watch something that you would like enjoy watching, and then we'll, get that in. So I really like that.
I love
Um,
that. That's like multitasking at its finest.
appreciate that. Yeah, I listen to a lot of different podcasts. I've been listening to the new Adam Grant podcast. I'm going to blank on the name of it. It's like rethinking or I'm like now looking it up because I'm like I always
Mhm.
like know I'm like really bad with like pop culture. I'm like looking in my favorites for it. But I think if you just Google Adam Grant, you'll find
Yeah.
it. It's interesting because it thinks about new topics, like current topics in new ways,
Mm.
which I find super interesting. I also am really guilty about mostly reading business books. So I've been making a goal to read non-business books. And I've been reading books about the reintroduction of wolves in Yosemite National Park, which
Oh.
I'm fat. They're fascinating, and they also. I did not have this idea. The gentleman's last name is McIntyre, I think. They're named for like the wolf's number. So one was like the reign of Wolf 6 or something.
Mhm.
And each book chronicles a wolf and their like life. But the really interesting thing for me, because I'm a total business geek, is it talks about it talks about all the things I love. So one, I get to learn a lot about my dog because it talks about like wolf things that happen, and I'm like, ooh, my dog does that too. That's probably why she does it. And then it also talks about teams because wolves like operate in a pack, and
Heck,
so
yeah.
there's so many like analogies that I end up like thinking about where I'm like, ooh, I should use that. So yeah, all my friends and family make fun of me because I only read businessy things. So I've been trying to read one of those. I've read all three of them. I think he has a fourth one that's just come out that I'll read soon. But I've tried to do one a month just so I would just not have all business books.
And you're actually reading it, or is it audio?
No, the funny thing is like I am actually reading them. I like a real book, so I listen to some books on audiobook. Usually business books I'll listen to on audio or podcast when I walk the
Yeah.
dog.
Mhm.
Um, but at night I like to read a real book because I feel like it helps me decompress from the day and not look at a screen.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. It takes a lot for me to read a book. I like to listen first because
Yeah,
I'm very auditory, and then that determines if I'll buy the physical book. Because usually I'll buy it because I want to go back to it and be able to reference and have that. So that's pretty cool
well, that's
that
cool. I like that idea.
you take the time to actually read the book.
I mean, only in like, like in those sorts of situations, or if I'm traveling, because I don't like to if I'm traveling for like not work, I don't like to bring my computer and I don't like to be on my phone. So on those situations, I always buy a book whenever I take a trip. I buy a book about the place I'm going
Yeah.
and then I'll leave it there. And then on the way home, if I finish it on the vacation, I'll treat myself to a book of my choice for the way back on the airplane ride. And then I usually never read that book because I end up falling asleep because I sleep on planes. So those are the books I like use to catch up on later in like whenever I'm like, oh, what do I want to read? Because I have like this series of books that I've bought in an airport that then I slept on the plane on the way home.
Yeah. I've got so many books. It's ungodly.
So yeah,
But
I mean, I feel like if you're going to surround yourself with something, surrounding yourself with books isn't a bad thing, Selena.
not a bad thing. I'm not mad about them, let me tell you.
Yeah,
And sometimes I gift them to people.
that's a good idea.
And you might, this might be the same answer, but let me ask it anyway. How do you maintain harmony in your life while running a company?
You know, I haven't always been great at it, so I will say that up front. There have been a few times I've gotten myself really burnt out. But I think, sort of recognizing it and trying to I've been really intentional this year about taking time for myself, and again, I'm not always great at that, so I've actually set commitments with friends. So, like, I meet friends at the gym, so if I don't show up, I hear about it. I golf with some friends on the weekends, so, like, I know that I need to get a certain amount of movement in my day to feel good about myself. Obviously, my dog keeps me honest because she needs to be walked a couple times a day. Um, but then for, like, weightlifting and stuff, I've honestly, I just follow my squad, right? And so, I just make sure that I set up appointments with them, and this PQ training that we've been doing is a really big piece of, like, my whole finding balance. I really love that a bunch of us got together and are doing it together because I think it's a really valuable conversation, and I find it's given me a lot of tools just to kind of slow my day down.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I've been really excited about that, and I still owe a few messages, but yeah, I sort of set some goals in the beginning of the year about what I wanted my year to look like. Um, like, so for example, I mean, I just canceled one, but I keep most of them. I schedule, like, a certain amount of long weekends, so I'll go through and just, like, block my calendar in January for a long weekend every month,
Oh,
and
good.
sometimes I can't take it, right? But, like, at least it's there, and I know that a standing meeting's not gonna end up on it. I also book weekly calls with my best friend, and again, not every week do we make them, but things that are in the calendar tend to happen more for me, so I try to, like, my calendar is very much personal and business, and I find all of those things equally important, so
Yes, I love that. I love that. I need to do that. Put more on the calendar to block stuff out. Because right now, the only thing that I actually have blocked out is Saturday. Saturday is a non-negotiable day. I take that no matter what. I
yeah,
like.
I find even just hours, Selena, too, right? Like, find something you like to do. Like, I like to work out in the morning. So, like, I'll just book that time, or, like, on my calendar, like, I know my dog needs to walk by a certain time, especially as she's older. So that time is blocked out so people don't schedule a meeting. Because
Yeah.
if they do, then I just end up being like, oh, man.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I,
Absolutely.
I don't know. That's what works for me. But I think everybody's got their own system, and I've tried a lot of different things, and I think also I would do that. I mean, honestly, for folks who are listening, I would just try a lot of stuff. Like, it's you, right? So you're your own audience, but if your friends have something, like, try it for a week and see if you like it, right? Like, chances are you're, like, not gonna like. I get up early, and all my friends were like, "Yeah, I tried that for a week. I didn't like that." Like, okay, like, other people might want to stay up late. Like, I can't stay up late. I go to bed at like 9 o'clock.
I love that. I'm working on it. I used to. For some reason, I'm all flipped around. I'm up to 2, 3 in the morning. I'm like, what is going on? This is not how
Man,
I want this to go. I really want to wake up at 5:30, at least by 5 to 5:30 every morning.
I
Because
I
I
couldn't
know
I wouldn't be able to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning if you paid me. Like,
I don't know what happens. So I'm turned around. I'm gonna
was
get
it,
it
like,
together.
daylight savings or something?
I
Like,
don't know what it is. It just happened. I'm living with my mother at the moment, and she's such a vampire. And I feel like maybe something rubbed off and it's trying to just hang on and won't let me go.
you're, like, on the same schedule now?
I It's weird. It's weird. But I have a note to myself today. I'm going to bed early because I've got some networking events tomorrow that I'm going
Ooh.
to attend. So
What are you gonna go into? Anything fun?
I am going to, well, yeah, you can come. It's over here in Ohio, though. I don't know if you want to do that. It's how to procure government contracts, and the
Ooh.
Urban League is putting on a fair where I think there are 5 companies that are going to be there explaining exactly what their RFP is and the process and all the details. So I
Cool.
want to go meet the people in the room, all of that good stuff. That's one of my goals, just to get out more in real life and connect with people because I love doing that.
I
So,
love that.
yeah, so I'm excited about that. All right, I got one more, maybe 2 questions for you.
Great.
What is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self, knowing what you know now?
What was one piece of advice? Well, I'll say the one thing I think I did well as a young person, which is advice I always give to like my nieces and nephews, is I said yes a lot.
Ooh.
So, when I was, young and I was in a career, they would say like, "Hey, do you want to move to this new state?" And I'd be like, "Sure." "You want to take this new job?" "Sure." Like, I'd always double check, like, "Hey, I don't know how to do that thing, right?" They're like, "Yeah, it's fine. We'll show you how to do it." I'm like, "Okay, great." Right. So, but saying yes allowed me to live in multiple countries, lots of states. It really opened up a lot of doors for me that probably wouldn't have been opened if I didn't say yes. So like that's something I'm really glad I did. I think if I were giving myself advice, it'd probably just be go a little easier on myself.
Mhm.
I was super type I still am super type A. And I can get like really heads down. Like when something has to get done, I could, I'll work 12, 15-hour days and not like come up for air. And I that's one thing I have to keep reminding myself. And I wish I would have probably set a better habit about that when I was younger.
Yeah.
Because now I'm just, you know, set in my ways.
I
So
knew you were going to say that. I was on the tip of my tongue, but I'm like, she's got to say that. We know. Well, this has been so fun.
this has been. I'm so glad you invited me. Thank you. This
I'm
is
so
great.
glad you said yes.
It's part
So
of my thing. I just say yes.
yeah, you just say yes. I love that. And I imagine that it allows you to not live a life of regrets.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that there's things that we all like, regret, right? Like I love to say like I'm gonna get to my last days and be like, "Man, I did that perfectly." I don't think that's what's gonna happen, but I think there's the things that I do regret are the things I said no to, right? I have not I don't often look back and be like, "Wow, I really wish I wouldn't have moved abroad." Like that never happens to me. So I think, I'm not saying you should say yes to things that are dangerous or anything, right? But like the opportunities that I was given, I could have said no to pretty easily because there's plenty of reasons why you may not want to move abroad when you're young, right? Like
Right.
I could have stayed where I was living and been perfectly happy and still been employed, right? It was an option. It wasn't like a mandatory thing. And so, um, I leaned into the discomfort a little bit and was like, well, sure, let's see what happens.
Yeah, got to see what happens. I
I
love
mean,
curious. See what happens. Well, tell the folks, how can they find you?
awesome. So you can definitely find us on LinkedIn. You can find myself, Tracy Eames, or Teams and Co. And again, that's TEAMES and Co. That's where we do a lot of our posting. We also have a podcast, which we're going to get Selina on here in a few short weeks. It's called Building Teams with Teams and Co. So it's all about what we do, right? So we talk a lot about strategy and customer and building teams. So that's super fun. And obviously our website. So www.teamsandco.com. You can, if you want to learn more about us, you can just go on there and book a call. And we'll be happy to chat with you about what you might be interested in.
I love that. I love that. So speaking of being interested in, you do have a couple of offers. Would you like to share your offers?
Yeah. So right now, again, like I said, we're launching some things around marketing strategy, especially to help small businesses and entrepreneurs. So this week we actually kick off our first session for the year of our 6-week marketing jumpstart. So the idea is that 6 weeks, there's one session a week where we teach you about how to do that piece of the marketing strategy, and then you have a week to complete it, right? So we'll talk a lot about how do you do customer interviews in week 1, right? How do you make a customer persona? And then you'll go off and do that work. And then we come back the next week, and we talk about, how do you do a competitive analysis and how do you figure out brand strategy and, all of those things. So that's more of a jumpstart program just for like folks who want to do it on their own.
Right.
Also, if you go to that page, which I think Selina is going to share, is you'll see some options for one-on-one coaching where if you want like, hey, you know what, Tracy, I want some more one-on-one help and support to just knock out my marketing strategy. We have that. And then we also have a new fun thing that we are offering, which is you can kind of build your own retreat. So if you want to be in person with us for a few days, you can call it a workshop, you can call it a offsite. But if you want to be, with us for a few days and actually getting the work done, we offer that as well. Because we realize sometimes people don't like to spread things out. They're like, hey, we just want to knock this out. Can we get a few people together and just, get the work done? So
I love that. I was trying to pull it up on the screen actually, and there it is. This part the techie in me doesn't know. So you've got the six week marketing strategy jumpstart. Can you see my
yep,
screen? Yep.
yep, that's it.
And then you've got a VIP one-on-one strategy coaching, and
Yep.
then marketing momentum coaching retreat. So
Yep.
you all check it out. It looks like if you want to get in on the 6th week, we've got one starting Tuesday, May
Yeah.
7th. Is there still a slot available for that?
So a couple of slots available if you want to join that one, or else we've got another one coming up in June after that.
That sounds fantastic. And then your VIP one-on-ones. What? Oh, you get the 6-week marketing jumpstart for free with that?
Yeah, from now through the middle of May, what we're doing is if you sign up for the retreat or the coaching, you get the jumpstart for free. The reason is we want folks who are working with us to feel like they have all the resources they need to be successful. So,
Absolutely.
if you want to sort of say, hey, Tracy, you know what? I want to brush up on my marketing strategy, but I really want one-on-one coaching around execution. What metrics should I be doing? We want to make sure that that's super doable and affordable for people. And we believe so strongly that strategy is the most important piece and you shouldn't skip it.
Right.
We're making sure that people who sign up for the execution part of it, make sure they get the strategy still.
I love that. So
So,
go to her website, check it out. It's got all the details there. And then the goal is for them to book a call.
yeah, book a call. We'll help you find out, and we want to make sure that folks have time to ask questions and figure out what the right program is for them. We know coaching is an investment in yourself, and so we want to make sure that our team's available to walk you through that. So we'll spend time understanding what your goals are and try to get you in the right spot.
I love that. I love that. I'm just going to check and see if anyone's asked us any questions.
All right.
Hey there. There is Cece Saria. She's like, Tracy is the goat of marketing. Yes, she is. Thanks for
I
being
appreciate
here.
that.
I feel the same way though. You're like the goat. I think I wrote that somewhere on one of the posts or something too. And that kind of concludes what we've been talking about today. I think this has been a wonderful conversation. I usually like to wrap it up by asking, do you have any questions for me?
Well, I would like to say, first of all, thank you, because I think you're a great podcast host, and that is not a given in this world. So I think you just do a tremendous job, Selena. You put people at ease, and it's been a really fun conversation. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for that. I guess what I'd love to know is what are some of your favorite learnings from all these conversations? You've gotten a chance to meet with a lot of great coaches, and you're a great coach. So kind of how do you sort of walk away from these podcasts and digest the information?
How do I walk away? So I have a practice that I do on a daily basis, actually, where I like to call it I release the day. So I reflect on everything that's happened in the day for the most part. Sometimes I get to journal about it, not always. Sometimes I'm journaling every 2 days, and I give thanks for it so that I can release it. And then if there are nuggets, I kind of hold on to them, or I'll note them. Sometimes I take away a practice that I can use and incorporate into what I'm doing. And the reason why I do that in releasing the day, I've been through some very traumatic things,
Mm,
and for a long time I was holding on to them for a very, very long time, and they were not serving me in any way.
yeah.
And so I realized that, some people are good at, they can tell you what year a song was made and came on, and every song on the album and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, that kind of stuff just doesn't serve me. And then a lot of the stuff that I was holding on to was just so negative, and it was holding me in a place that I didn't want to be in.
Yeah.
You know, I I just want to be present, because that's where everything is. That's all we have is the present. So it's really big, a big deal to me. And so yeah, if I don't write it down, it's probably not going to happen. Or I'm likely not to really remember, because with intention, I'm giving thanks for what happened, regardless of what it is, and then I'm releasing it.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm gonna start to try to do that. I think that that's a really valuable lesson for folks.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't know if that fully answered your question, but that's kind of how it goes.
No, that's great. I mean, you get to have all these great conversations, and so there's so much information coming at you. So I can see how that could be really helpful in terms of kind of sorting through it, taking the things that you want to take, but also then just leaving the rest and still being true to you, which is great.
Absolutely. And then the other thing I would say is when we do have something that's great that we want to capture, we repost it. We'll take that clip
Oh yeah.
and we'll repost it so it's out there for everyone to still consume.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, this has been great.
It's
Well,
been so much fun.
I know. I'm sure we'll do it again. I look forward to being on your podcast. I can't wait. Building teams. That I love being a part of a team, part of a community, all of those things. And I have built teams. I've had other businesses and I've been a part of a number of teams. So I
Yeah.
can't wait to kind of have that conversation. So
Well,
I
there's four seasons, so you can binge all you want. You might get sick of listening to me though, so you might want to space it out.
Tracy, you are so doggone funny. You may have I get serious and I've got passion about this tone, but you are funny as all get out.
Well, I appreciate it. I do better when I'm being interviewed than when I'm just left to my own devices. So I think it's a tribute to you and your interview skills.
Well, thank you. Not a problem. Thank you all for tuning in to this coaching conversation. We're going to drop all of the links and the deets that Tracy shared with us tonight. Next week is actually Mother's Day. So I haven't made a call on it yet. I don't really have any plans or anything of that nature. If it all goes down, I'll be here next week on May 12th. If not, I'll be celebrating Mother's Day because it's my business and my Tabitha voice. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, have a good night. All right.